and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Haller at Cybos 2015 and I'm here with Ian Horobin of Swift. Thank you very much for joining me.
Very welcome.
So based on the discussions at the Compliance Forum this week, how has the compliance landscape changed in the past year?
Well, it's actually changed quite a lot, and it's one of those environments where we should make sure that we set the expectation and understand that it changes on an ongoing basis. So the requirements that we had 5 years ago were really not the requirements we have today, and the same will be in the future as well. Now, if I was to pick one area that interests me in this area, it's around assurance. Now, assurance is when we have identified a risk within financial crime and we have a control in place that mitigates that risk. The assurance and the introduction of second level controls are really to provide the assurance that this control is working. And from a regulatory point of view, the assurance helps us to understand the behaviour of that control and to understand how that control actually meets the risk appetite of the organisation. So it is a change, it is an evolution and an introduction of new requirements for organisations, but it also can have a silver lining as well. And one of the things we're finding is if you can assure yourself that you understand how the control works and how it behaves and how it aligns to your risk appetite, you can also fine-tune it and refine it and save yourself working what are known as false positives. And one organisation that we've been working with, DBS, has actually managed to reduce the number of false positives within their transaction environment by about 60% and by about 40% within their customer environment. So it's one of those issues that's interesting because it's a new requirement and it's a growing expectation, but it's also got a silver lining if you address it properly, and it's an interesting position to take.
And how have the views of the delegates of the value of financial crime compliance utilities changed?
Well, I think one of the things that's happened, if you look back over the last couple of years, there was a big debate about what are utilities and should we have utilities? And I think we've really moved on from that now. We're now into the position where we're saying, how do we drive market adoption of utilities? How do we broaden the scope of those utilities? And also, what are the additional benefits that we can get out of those utilities? So I think, it's a fundamental shift and it's a maturing of the idea. And I think some of the benefits that we can get out of utilities are actually really quite important for financial crime. If we use a utility and we can introduce standards, if you can introduce standards, then that helps the control landscape throughout the industry, which is only beneficial to everybody.
The forum included a session on how the landscape of financial crime compliance will change within 5 years. So what did the session conclude?
Well, I think the session concluded to start with that it's almost impossible to predict the future. We're in a changing environment, and so it would be great if we could predict it accurately. So the first thing that everyone agrees on is that we can't predict it, but there are certain things happening. I think one of those things is Fintech. Now, Fintech's very interesting. It's challenging payments, payment platforms, and the whole interaction with the customers that potentially have phenomenal benefits. But I think from the compliance and financial crime point of view, we haven't yet worked out, if those products come online, what does it mean in terms of risk? How do you manage the risk when money is onboarded? How do you manage it when it leaves? And how do you manage it when it moves around the environment? So as yet we don't know what it actually means in terms of the risk, and we're working on those things. And I think we're also very mindful of some of the unintended consequences that may well happen with the introduction of these technologies.
Ian, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.